Hi, and welcome. I'm Deborah Gross, the CEO of Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts, and I want to welcome you to our PMC Shares programming on court basics. I want to thank the Carnegie Library System for enabling this presentation. I also want to thank Judge Mik Pappas, the Magisterial District Judge, and Nicola Henry-Taylor, an attorney who used to be on PMC's advisory board, for joining us today. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about PMC and why we do this. PMC was started about 30 years ago. There had been a few scandals, I will say, in the judiciary, and there was a lack of confidence in the judicial system. PMC was established as a result of some report from a commission that was put together to make suggestions as to how we can give the public more confidence in our judicial system. One of the reforms that was suggested was that we consider changing the way we elect or choose our judges in Pennsylvania, our appellate court judges, which you will learn about shortly, and that was to elect them based on merit selection or appointment. Pennsylvania still elects our appellate court judges, and you will hear that we are in an election year. So it is really important for you to learn about the court system and educate yourself about the candidates who are running for judicial office. But right now we are here to talk about our judicial system. And I'm going to turn it over to Nicola to explain a little bit about our judicial system in the state of Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you, Deb, and thank you for explaining PMC and inviting Judge Pappas and I to participate. I think that we can all agree, and I think we do, that our courts are really important, and we need our citizens to understand. So those of you who are watching, thank you for watching. Generally, cases in Pennsylvania involve civil cases and criminal cases. Civil cases are between two litigants, which is a fancy word that we use in the law, but it's between two parties, whether it's a corporation, individual, and that would be between those two. That differentiates itself from criminal cases, which is where the government is the moving party, and they may be filing a suit, a criminal case against an individual or corporation. And if you're involved in a criminal case as a witness, you are not a party to that matter. And the ultimate burden of proof in criminal cases is the absolute highest in the whole judicial system, and that's beyond a reasonable doubt. And in Pennsylvania, not only do they have to prove you guilty of the crime, but every single element of the crime. So for example, if an element of the crime is a conspiracy and it's that two or more people came to an agreement, they'd have to prove that part, and they'd have to prove every single piece that the law requires. And so you have an absolute right to an attorney under the Pennsylvania Constitution and the federal Constitution. And interestingly enough, some people don't know this, but in some civil cases, you have a right to an attorney. For instance, if your parental rights are being terminated, that's a huge liberty. You will be appointed an attorney for that. There are gaps in our system, though. There are places like very important landlord-tenant matters and other places where people don't get an attorney. And one particular gap that I have found is there are a lot of programs that help women for example, women with domestic violence and protection from abuse, but there are not enough programs that also help men. So that's something maybe together with places like PMC and others that we can work on making sure that more people have protection and they have a right to an attorney. There are pro bono and other services that will give you an attorney. So we can move to the next slide. And this pyramid lays out kind of what the system is in Pennsylvania. At the top of the pyramid is the Supreme Court, which is our highest court in Pennsylvania. I will tell you, though, it is the oldest court it's being said that it's the oldest court in the whole country. So it's pretty special. And if you have an opportunity to go to the city county building in Pittsburgh, the room that's there is absolutely beautiful, and it has a lot of historical facts, and they will give you a tour. That is not a court that you just get to go to, though, as far as litigating. You have to request that. You have to file a petition for allowance of appeal. And this is after you've gone through all of the other levels that you see here. So let's go down on the pyramid and talk about the other levels. The lower level in our minor courts are municipal court. And in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia have municipal courts. In Pittsburgh, our municipal court is, we call it city court colloquially. And then we also have magisterial district offices, and Judge Pappas will talk a little bit about giving us some specifics about it and the work that he does there. And here's a little interesting fact about that is you do not have to be a lawyer in order to be a magistrate judge in Pennsylvania. On the right side of the screen, the magisterial district judges. And so the kind of cases that you'll see there are for criminal cases, even serious cases, the preliminary hearings, the initial hearing, which does not have as high of a burden of proof, those are heard by those judges. So that's important work. Landlord-tenant matters, non-traffic matters, such as a neighbor dispute where there's a harassment charge, or if there's some truancy matters, which Judge Pappas might also explain a little bit more. On some of these matters, you may do if you don't like the outcome, you may do a summary appeal to the Court of Common Pleas, or in some matters like a landlord-tenant matter, or actually there's some other kinds of matters like, for instance, a disciplinary matter at a school, you may do a statutory appeal, or maybe there's a commission, as we have in Allegheny County, the Human Relations Commission, where you may want to do a statutory appeal. So the Court of Common Pleas is our trial level, and it's a very important and busy court. And in Allegheny County, we have 4 divisions, which I talked generally about, that we have civil and criminal division in every county. But in Allegheny County, we break it up into 4 divisions. And we have, and I believe Philadelphia might even have more because they have a lot of specialty courts. But we have the civil division that we talked about, the criminal division. We also have orphans court, and we also have criminal division, which is the bigger felony cases of adults. Any criminal cases of juvenile would be in the family division, either that would be a delinquency case or a dependency case where children and youth services are involved. So there's a lot of different diversity of kind of matters that this trial court is looking at. And there are a number of judges, and they typically are, they're elected for 10-year terms. And typically when they do their retention and every 10 years, they do remain. So this is why it's so important. Judge Pappas always says elections matter. And so please pay attention to the importance of who you are putting on the bench to hear these very important cases. The next level up is the intermediate courts, which is the Superior Court of Pennsylvania and the Commonwealth Courts. Most cases that are being appealed from the Court of Common Pleas would go to the Superior Court. You don't need permission. You file it, and then this is not, just to be clear though, you're not going to get to do a retrial. This is about specific legal type of issues, and it was highly recommended that you would have legal counsel for this type of matter. The Commonwealth Court is dealing with matters that involve the government, local government entities, and you may have noticed during the presidential election that the Commonwealth Court was very important in making decisions about some election laws. Other examples might be a Department of Welfare case, or a children and youth case where there's someone says that you've abused a child and you want to get that off your record. You don't want to have any child line record on your record, and you want to be able to be around your kids. And then we talked about the Pennsylvania Supreme Court already. And lastly, before I turn it over to Judge Pappas, I will say that right now in our appellate courts, that would be the intermediate courts that we talked about and the Supreme Court, we only have one judge of color, and we're trying to improve upon that. And so hopefully if you pay attention, we can try to make sure that those numbers go up as well. So with that, I would turn the discussion over to Judge Pappas.
Thank you very much, Nicola, and please, for purposes today, you can just call me Mik. We're not in court or anything, so that's just fine with me. I really want to thank everybody for having us here today, Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts and the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh system, of course, attorney Nicola Henry-Taylor as well. I want to just present a couple slides here so that the public can know where they can access information about the courts. The first here, this slide, is the website of the 5th Judicial District of Pennsylvania. So our various jurisdictions in Pennsylvania are broken up into judicial districts. And Allegheny County is one judicial district, and it is the 5th Judicial District. So this is the website for the 5th Judicial District. You can find information there about every division that Nicola just made reference to. You can find case information there. Very importantly, you can fill out certain forms online on this website, and you can actually download other forms that you can't fill out online on this website that can be presented in court offices in person. For example, you can fill out a petition for emergency protection from abuse online through this website. You can seek a continuance of your preliminary hearing online through this website, and you can be transferred to the statewide court website to download other forms. That statewide court website is pacourts.us. Also, another website that can be very helpful is this one here, which is the Department of Court Records of Allegheny County. You can find excellent court information, docket entries, which is each time a document gets filed in a court case, information about court cases which you or your loved ones or friends may be involved. Basic public information, everything that happens in court happens on the record and is public, and it's very important for you, the public, to know how to access that information. Moving on to the next slide, I would like to, since I'm a magisterial district judge here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, just give a little bit of information or background about what we do as judges. First and foremost, we are public servants. There's this opacity or this kind of fog in the mind of the public, so to speak, when it comes to the role of judges and what judges specifically do. And so it's very important that you know we aren't magical law wizards who hide behind chambers and benches. We're public servants. We serve you, we're elected by you, and that's what we're here to do. Specifically, the jurisdiction and venue of magisterial district judges is provided for in Title 42 in Pennsylvania. That's called the Judicial Code under Section 1515. And what you have right here is basically what it describes under Section 1515. Civil actions of a certain kind for damages of $12,000 or less. Landlord-tenant cases, what we formally call actions for recovery of real property, are first filed in magisterial district courts. Some are motor vehicle code violations. So if you get pulled over by a police officer and you're issued a citation for going over the speed limit or having too much tint on your windows, a magisterial district judge would hear that case. Summary non-traffic offenses. So these are local ordinances, truancy cases, which Nicola mentioned, summary crimes code, Title 18 violations, and many others. Very interesting and very important. It's a hot topic of discussion in public discourse, that is bail hearings. Magisterial district judges have jurisdiction over bail hearings in all criminal cases except homicide cases where there's a murder charge that is, commonly referred to as murder 1, 2, or 3, and voluntary manslaughter cases. Magisterial district judges don't have jurisdiction to set bail in those cases, but in voluntary manslaughter and all other types of crimes, we do have jurisdiction to set bail in those cases. Preliminary hearings, in most of the time preliminary hearings, unless they proceed by grand jury indictment, we have the authority and jurisdiction to issue arrest warrants, search warrants, petitions, that is orders for emergency protection from abuse upon petition. And it's very important to understand that we as MDJs review these requests for warrants, requests for orders to determine if there's sufficient evidence to issue them. We don't just sign our names to them when they're presented. We review them first and ensure that there's sufficient evidence to issue them, because issuance of them can have significant consequences for a person in their life and their liberties. And I think that's the end of that side. If we can maybe move on to the next one. Now, this was mentioned briefly earlier by Nicola in her broad overview, but there are certain qualifications that one must have to be a magisterial district judge. I think of magisterial district judges as lay judges, which are common throughout the United States and throughout the world. And I say that because everywhere from Japan to Italy and to here in Pennsylvania, there are judges who aren't attorneys, who aren't licensed as attorneys, and that includes some magisterial district judges. To be a magisterial district judge, it is not a requirement that you be an attorney. You have to pass certain education requirements in order to be certified as a magisterial district judge, or you can be an attorney, pass those education requirements and bar exam requirements that are required of any lawyer in the state of Pennsylvania.
Also important that once you become a magisterial district judge, you still have a continuing legal education requirement that is actually stricter than what the common pleas court judges have. Isn't that correct?
And it's also stricter than what is required of attorneys, I guess, because we don't go through the, if you're not an attorney, you become an MDJ, then you don't go through the rigors of law school and a bar exam, but you are required to obtain 32 continuing legal education credits per year, whereas if you're an attorney, your continuing legal education requirements are 12 credits. So in fact, I'll be going to 1 week of what we call judge school about a month from now, and we do that every year. And I think that you're on the education board for the minor judiciary here in Pennsylvania, which provides for our curriculum and makes sure that we're up to date on legal issues as they develop every year.
Yeah, I was just appointed and I'm overwhelmed at how thorough and detailed everything is. So it's really great to see. Okay.
And of course, when you talk about the Herculean effort of the education board for MDJs, you have to understand that there are 512 MDJs in the state of Pennsylvania. And that doesn't include senior judges who also have to obtain continuing legal education in order to remain senior judge status. And those senior judges kind of fill in gaps, personnel gaps, quite frankly. Being a judge is a job, and sometimes there's personnel gaps and you need someone to fill in, and senior judges play that role. So well over 500 folks go to that education program every year. In Allegheny County, there's 46 magisterial district judges, and that includes the 12 in the city of Pittsburgh. And in Allegheny County, we handle over 250,000 cases per year. Statewide, there's well over 2.2 million cases that are handled by magisterial district judges every year. So it's quite a lot of volume, and I guess we are providing access to justice, because a lot of folks are accessing justice through our courts. But I always do like to say that justice can occur at the community level as well. And courts are our go-to, our default for accessing justice. The first stop is oftentimes magisterial district courts, but there are a lot of good community mediation programs and mediation resources out there that people can access as an alternative to.
I think it's important that people understand that they can represent themselves in these courts, really and the judges are helpful. I mean, they're not going to say you can't stand up here and represent yourself. So, and I would assume that actually a good percent of individuals who come before you do represent themselves.
Yes, in civil cases, yes. A smaller number of them represent themselves in criminal cases, because at your preliminary hearing, you have the right to be represented by counsel. But in civil cases, oftentimes one wants to present their own case or forego the expense of a lawyer. Although if you do want to look into potentially hiring counsel in a case before a magistrate, then you can reach out to your local bar association. Here in Allegheny County, we do have a lawyer referral service through our bar association that has rave reviews.
May I also add that neighborhood legal services will help on landlord-tenant matters and some other matters at the magistrate level, if it's Allegheny County. In other counties, it might be Southwestern Legal Services or Laurel Legal Services. And there are some pro bono projects. Our Allegheny Bar Foundation is very rich. They have, if you name an issue, they have a program. So there are resources, and there's also modest, mean, and low bono, some people call it, programs through agencies like the YMCA. So I think that while it's nice that the magistrates are kind, as a practicing lawyer, I always advocate for people trying to get a lawyer if they can, because I've been on the other end of trying to fix some things, you know, when someone didn't have representation or there's a miscommunication, no matter how wonderfully articulate they are, because the legal system is a web sometimes, and it's hard to navigate.
That's a really good point.
Nicola or Mik, who would like to take?
Sure. I will leave this one to Nicola, as she is currently a candidate for the Court of Common Pleas. I'd give her a chance to explain this one a little bit.
Thank you, Mik. We touched on this a little bit. The Court of Common Pleas, it affects families on a daily basis. Some of the kinds of cases, if you don't know when we say family division, what that means, custody cases, that could affect a child for the rest of their lives. Support matters, child support, spousal support, equitable distribution in a divorce matter. And so these cases are very, very important. You don't have jury trials in those cases. The judges would hear those matters, and you don't have them in Orphan's Court either. But as you can see from the slide, the Court of Common Pleas does hear the trials for civil and criminal cases. And as we said, you can't on the Superior Court retry your case, but if you're the best place to win your case, if you're going to try to win it, is at the Court of Common Pleas, to do a very good job at presenting evidence, developing your case, making sure you file timely and good and important and relevant pleadings, to make sure you develop what's called a record, so that you don't want to ever have to try to relitigate it in the Superior Court, or Commonwealth Court, which is really not a possibility to relitigate it. There are 43 judges in Allegheny County. However, I don't believe that counts the senior judges. And so we are very fortunate to have some really good senior judges. For example, Judge Mulligan, who was at one point the administrator for family division. So we have some rich talent, and I believe Judge Marmo is going to be a senior judge. So there's a lot of work going on in Allegheny County. And I'll just share a story. In the pandemic, they had to retool how everything was done. And my understanding is Judge Mulligan helped to find a way to do the PFA remotely, along with lawyers. And so there was a lot of creativity that happened with what, what's on this paper is what, this is what we normally do. But the COVID-19 caused the courts to pivot, and our president judge, Kim Berkeley-Clark, did a fabulous job. All of the administrative judges, and so did Judge Mulligan and her efforts, and others, with making sure that litigants had a chance to participate, whether it be by telephone, by video, or whatever way. Did you want me to touch on what is Orphan's Court as well then? Which we talked about a little bit in my overview, was Orphan's Court may not sound fun because we're talking about wills and estates and sometimes property rights, and but it is actually very interesting at times, especially when we're dealing with adoptions, which, having a parental rights terminated could be impactful for many people involved for the rest of everybody's lives. And also the happy part of that sometimes is the adoption part. Families sometimes are fighting in orphans court about guardianship of somebody who is incapacitated under the law. And it's dealing with nonprofits and inheritance. And it just handles some very important matters that is not being addressed in criminal or civil division. There's also a slide explaining family court and all of the matters and information. There's a lot of contact information on the website for family division and understanding when motions are presented, how motions are presented, how to navigate what's called the generations department for custody matters. And all of that is included on that 5th judicial website. And it looks like this is just another piece of that website. It's such a rich resource that has so much information that you can get to help you through your matter. We've already talked a little bit about the Superior Court and the Commonwealth Court. So this slide, if you want to go back to it and refer to it. And we also, the slide with respect to the Commonwealth Court, there's some quick facts and the fact that it's unique to Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania just has a lot of interesting tidbits like this that no other jurisdiction in the country has a Commonwealth Court like we do that hears these governmental matters. And so that makes us very unique. And at this time, we have 7 Republicans and 2 Democrats on the Commonwealth Court. And as we've stated previously, there is an election going on. And so those are things that could be changing. And that sometimes, depending on what the issue is, if it is an election law issue, that can become relevant as well.
Nicola, may I interject one small tidbit there? Because we did talk about this before. And Deb mentioned the founding of Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts stems from the need to promote public confidence in the judiciary. And I would just say that essential to promoting public confidence in the judiciary is having an independent and diverse judiciary, one that reflects the public itself. And Commonwealth Court is also unique because 7 of the 9 judges on the Commonwealth Court are women, which is quite unique. And I think it's something that Pennsylvania should be proud of.
That is, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Pennsylvania, the appellate court system and even our Commonwealth court system have a nice showing of women on the bench. They just unfortunately do not have a minority representation on the bench.
Right. Which is something we look forward to improving. And we did on the Supreme Court, we did have a wonderful, we did have some diversity. Justice Baldwin was on there at one point, but and we've had judges run for it. Like we talked about, Carolyn Nichols actually from Philadelphia ran. So there are efforts to try to improve that diversity. And we do know that also Judge Woodruff from Allegheny County ran for that as well. And they
add Justice Nix to that.
Oh yeah. And he
the first
the
first African-American Supreme Court justice of a state court was Justice Nix.
Yeah, he's
first statewide elected.
Right, he's a historical fact. He's thank you for adding that. And we talked in the overview as well about the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. They get to decide, and it is not uncommon when people appeal from the Superior Court or Commonwealth to not have them say, we're not going to take your case. And an interesting case that came out, I think everybody probably saw this year, was the Bill Cosby case. That's not how it normally goes for us practicing lawyers. We don't go to trial, get a result, appeal to the Superior Court, and then get the whole thing overturned. So that was absolutely unique, and it was something that lawyers were amazed at how that all transpired. I don't know, Judge Pappas, did you have anything to add about that?
I have no comment on the Cosby matter, but I can say that it's incredible to have a case before the Supreme Court. It's extremely rare for them. They have discretion to accept the case, and they're only going to do it if there's a very, very important legal issue that needs to be addressed by them. And I think that's what it was in the Cosby matter. There was a due process issue that needed to be addressed.
Right.
I mean, they've been addressing a lot of due process criminal court related matters as of late.
Right.
It's interesting. The Supreme Court, I think, takes about 10, not even 10% of the cases that the Superior Court handles.
Wow.
Which is, you know, it's just a different, our Superior Court is one of the busiest courts in the country because of all the cases that it handles.
Right. I mean, because and one thing I want to point out is their timelines. So if you think that, you know, let's say you had a trial in family division and you think, oh, I might appeal if I feel like it later. You have deadlines. You have to make sure that if you're unrepresented, that you meet those deadlines. So even though you can automatically appeal to the Superior Court or Commonwealth Court, doesn't mean that you don't make sure that you watch those deadlines.
And so I'm going to skip through the slides since we pretty much addressed all this, but here's the interest. This is actually an information piece of marketing information that's put out by our administrative offices of the Pennsylvania courts, the AOPC. And this was something that they just put out in February 2021 about women on the bench in Pennsylvania.
It was on social media as well. So they're doing a really good job of making sure that there's civic engagement, that we're messaging the important work that the courts are doing, where we are doing well with diversity of women on the bench. And I think Allegheny County can speak to that as well at the Court of Common Pleas. Women have improved on the bench, and I believe the magistrates as well. And Mik might be able to speak to that better.
Definitely have a lot of room to go, especially in our magistrate district courts. I believe there's 6, not more than 6 women presiding as magistrate district judges in Allegheny County currently. One of them is a woman of color, and the first woman of color elected to a magistrate district court position in Pittsburgh was this year. Well, she's now a candidate, but received the Democratic nomination. So there's certainly a lot of room to grow in terms of diversity of the bench here in Allegheny County. And like I said before, judicial diversity, I believe, is just absolutely essential to public confidence in the judiciary.
So, which leads us to that this year is the judicial election year. And, you know, odd number years are judicial election years. And not a lot of people come out to vote. And it's really important that they come out to vote this year as well as any other year. I mean, for the primary, which we had in May, we had about 2 million people in the Commonwealth come out and vote. Whereas for 2020, 10 million people come out and vote. So it is important that Pennsylvanians educate themselves about, you know, judicial elections. So judicial elections are November 2nd. You should come out and vote. And as we've said, for the various offices that are up for, I guess, election, we discussed briefly who could become a magisterial district judge, but who can become a judge or justice. Those individuals must be members of the Bar of Pennsylvania. They have to be residents of their district for 1 year prior to the election. You know, they are elected for an initial, judges and justices are elected for an initial 10-year term. After they serve that 10-year term, they then run for what's known as a retention election. And that's simply a yes or no vote that the judge or justice should be retained. There is an age limitation, which was a constitutional amendment that judges can be judges until the age of 75, and then they may go to be a senior judge. And so on our ballot in Pennsylvania, we have 1 position for the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So there are 2 candidates. We have 2 positions for the Pennsylvania Superior Court. Is that actually, I don't think that's.
I think there's 1.
Yeah, there's 1. That slide is incorrect. I apologize. There's 1 position for the Pennsylvania Superior Court, 2 positions available open for the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court. And then there are 9 positions open for the Allegheny Court of Common Pleas. And there are 20 magisterial court judicial positions that for which there will be elections. And these are large numbers for Allegheny County. This is an unusual year. You know, I am based in Philadelphia, and we have had elections like this. And if you recall, in your primary, there were a lot of candidates running for these positions, and plus you had the mayor mayoral candidate election as well. So that I know in Allegheny County there was more on the ballot to get people out to vote, but I'm not sure, you know, people came out to vote.
I think they did, and
Okay.
yeah, more. This was
Especially in the city. Yeah.
engaged. It was
Right.
different because there were a lot of grassroots groups
Right.
that got engaged, and that was probably because of things that happened in our country before. There's social justice issues, and people were very, very engaged. And this was, I think, historic in many, many ways. You know, the election that occurred has positioned us to be able to get that diversity and representation that Mik talked about.
And Deb, you mentioned that Pennsylvania has partisan
sorry.
judicial elections. And I just wanted to say that I think we're only one of 7 states that has partisan judicial elections. Other states who have judicial elections, have nonpartisan judicial elections, where a judicial candidate doesn't run as one party or the other, which I thought was really interesting. I learned that recently in talking to a judge from Texas, actually, where they have nonpartisan judicial elections. But yeah, I mean, if you put Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas election this year into context, it would be like replacing 2 or 3 United States Supreme Court justices all at once in terms of percentage of places on the bench and the potential to really reshape that bench entirely.
And so this slide lists which judges are up for retention election, and the Allegheny County Bar Association did a 2021 referendum poll among the attorneys who are members of the Allegheny County Bar Association, and they recommended that these judges be affirmed to continue another 10 years. And the bar associations do a tremendous service to educating, you know, everybody about the candidates. And it's really important. The Allegheny County Bar Association, the Philadelphia Bar Association, the Pennsylvania Bar Association, and many of the local county bar associations as well, they have commissions, which candidates fill out questionnaires, they provide references, the county bar associations do investigations as to the references, as to people who are not referred, but lawyers go out and investigate, they read briefs, they interview judges before whom these candidates, you know, have practiced, and they really do a very thorough and detailed investigation, making a determination as to whether to recommend, you know, a judge or a candidate for a judicial position. And go ahead, Nicola.
I will also add, after they do all that work in Allegheny County, they have a marketing strategy where they get the word out to the citizens. And so they will make sure that goes out so people are informed about what their rating is, regardless of your agreement or disagreement with it. You get that information.
And you can also do your own, you know, investigation, right? You can search the internet. You can look at the Pennsylvania's website about legal experience for what, you know, about with respect to lawyers. Make sure they haven't been disbarred. You can look into whether people have been involved in their community. You know, once you search the internet, you can see if they've learned, you know, they've taught or spoken to community events. Are they committed to equal justice? Do they, you know, are they compassionate? I mean, these are all really important important qualities for a candidate. And here are some websites that you can find this information. The Allegheny County Bar Association is www.acba.org. Pennsylvania Bar is pabar.org. The Pennsylvania Disciplinary Board is a Pennsylvania Disciplinary, PA-disciplinaryboard.org, or the Pennsylvania Judicial Conduct Board, which is the board which oversees the judicial conduct, of judges, is the Judicial Conduct Board of PA.org. Oh, and I skipped this slide. I shouldn't skip the slide. PMC is holding an appellate court candidate forum where all the candidates for the appellate courts, the Supreme Court, Superior Court, and Commonwealth Court will participate. It is virtual so that you can watch it from anywhere. It is from, I think it's from 5:30. Actually, I'm not sure the time. I think it's from 5:30 to 6:30 at night. So please sign up. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email PMC, ahead of time, and we will try to have the moderator ask your question. So we don't have much time left, but I just wanted to briefly explain that there are two, court systems that are somewhat parallel. We've been speaking about the Pennsylvania state court system, but there is also a federal court system. In Pennsylvania, we have our federal courts, which are in the Western District of Pennsylvania, that's in Pittsburgh, the Middle District of Pennsylvania, and the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. And they are I would say, entry-level courts in the federal court system. Federal court system is what we have seen through the United States Supreme Court, so that's something that is more visible. But the federal court system, in the federal court system, the U.S. Supreme Court is similar to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. It is the highest court, makes the final decision, and you don't have an automatic right of appeal, but the court decides what cases it's going to take. In federal court, cases can get there by statutory. They can be challenging the U.S. Constitution, violation of federal laws, or a diversity. The plaintiff and defendant are from different locations, and the case is more than $75,000. Sometimes you've heard about the term U.S. bankruptcy court. That is where it's all a federal court. It's a different, the judge is not a judge, is not appointed for life, but is appointed for a term, and that handles all different types of bankruptcy. The federal court judges are appointed for life. U.S. District Court, the Court of Appeals in Pennsylvania, we are part of the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, and the U.S. Supreme Court, the judges and justices are appointed for life. And we touched upon that. Okay, I skipped all these slides quickly. Okay, well, I went through those slides pretty fast, but I don't know if there's any other suggestions or thoughts you had for, the constituents in Pennsylvania. I know that, the courts are open again, although we know that COVID has changed a lot, and you need to right now wear a mask when you enter the courts. And the courts have been really trying to work with you to be open, to be accessible, and to handle your questions. Mik or Nicola, do you have any final words?
Do you want to go first, Mik?
No, you can go, and then I'll say maybe a little something.
I know you have a fabulous quote that you will share, because you always do. I am proud to live in a Commonwealth and a country that has these court systems. They help us to navigate life. There are other opportunities, as we talked about, where you can mediate things. We could do things in a collaborative manner outside of court, but there are times where you need the courts, and we have a wonderful system set up for that. And so, I think we all have encouraged you to utilize the courts if needed, and to, if needed, look at resources and look at things that can help you, such as the bar associations, nonprofits, and make sure that you address your issues, because the courts have been set up to make sure that they serve you and you're important.
I couldn't have said it better. And that's why I'll rely on Justice Kennedy of the United States Supreme Court, who once said that the law doesn't belong, or the Constitution, I should say, doesn't belong to a bunch of lawyers and judges. It belongs to you. And that's why I'm just so grateful for Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts and the Carnegie Library for hosting this event. Going to court can be intimidating. Being in court can be intimidating, and the judicial role, the court system can seem opaque to you as a member of the public, but always keep in mind that it is there to serve you. We're there to serve you. You are the client. You are the person who is a member of the public coming to have access to our judicial system, and we're here for you, to serve you.
And I want to thank both of you very much for participating in this program. I want to thank the Carnegie Library for enabling this program to happen. And PMC is also available to help. We have a helpline. We have a lot of information on our website about different topics of law, because we have various PMC share workshops on landlord-tenant, on criminal law, on family law. And we're also here to, direct you and refer you to experts in this field. So again, thank you very much and have a good night.